Today, we are going to discuss the novel Oliver Twist. Oliver Twist is a novel of Charles Dickens. The novel is about the life story of an illegitimate orphan boy, Oliver Twist. Agnes is an unmarried woman who gave birth Oliver in a workhouse. Mr. Brumble named the boy Oliver Twist. Oliver had spent 9 years in the workhouse under the care of Mrs. Mann, who was an expert in misappropriating the money. She gave Mars food to the workhouse children. On the other hand, Mr. Bumble was also an unsympathetic, cruel, stone hearted man. The officials got laid up with Oliver because he had asked for more food. One day, Noah Claypole made fun of Oliver's mother and abused her. As a result, Oliver attacked upon him. Sowerberry had beaten Oliver cruelly. Oliver could not endure such kind of ill treatment and left the house. He prepared himself to go to London. Oliver had slightly Oliver had single penny in his pocket and a crust of bread to eat. He had to walk long distance without any carriage. Oliver met a boy of his own age, Jack Dawkins. He offered to date. He offered to lead Oliver to London and make essential arrangements for his living. Oliver accepted his proposal. After reaching in London, Jack Dawkins introduced Oliver to an old Jew, Fagin, who is the villain of the novel. Fagin was expert in pickpockets, stealing, and robbery. He had few boys under him who helped him in his business. Fagin decided to give trading to his boy and wanted to make him a criminal. Being innocent, Oliver could not understand Fagin's bad idea. One day, Oliver was ordered to go with other children of the gang and observe how they did their work. They all were working in a locality called Clerkenwell. The boy told Oliver to wait, and the boys stole the handkerchief of an old gentleman who was reading a book at a bookstall. Both Dozer and Bates started running away. Oliver became frightened and he also started to run. Then the old gentleman came to know that the boys picked his pocket. Then he chased the boys to catch them. Dozer and Bates escaped, but Oliver was caught. The police came there and took Oliver to the police station. The eyewitness of the incident described that he is the owner of the bookstall. He appeared in the court and said that Oliver was innocent and the old gentleman's pocket was picked by other two boys, not Oliver. So Oliver was released. Mr. Brownlow was the man whose pocket was picked. He felt sympathy to the orphan boy. He carried the boy to his own house. One day, Mr. Brownlow gave some books and money to Oliver and told him to deliver it to the bookstall owner. On the way, Nancy noticed Oliver and punched him. She told the crowd that Oliver was her lost brother who was refusing to go back to home. People believed the story and forced Oliver to go with Nancy. Nancy took Oliver to Fagin once again. Oliver was forced again for burglary with Six and Toby. Six had planned to use Oliver as an instrument in committing robbery. They came at the house of a rich lady, Mrs. Maylin, to rob, but they failed because the servants of the house had woken up. They hit Oliver when the boys were escaping Oliver because unconscious, but when he got back his sense, he knocked the same door to get shelter. Mrs. Maylie and Rose felt deep sympathy for the child. Oliver again started to enjoy peace and move. Mox met Oliver. He decided to convert Oliver into a thief. He told his plan to Fagin, who was also against Oliver. Nancy heard the conversation of Monks and Fagin, so she decided to protect Oliver. She narrated the story to Rose. After that, Rose was led to Mr. Brownlow. She narrated everything to Brownlow. They all decided to help Oliver. Mr. Brownlow knew that Monks was the son of his most intimate friend, late Edwin Leaford. He also came to know that Oliver was also the illegitimate son of Edwin Leaford. He knew that Oliver's mother, Agnes, had died soon after giving birth Oliver. Brownlow caught Monks and forced to confess the truth about Oliver. Monks shared his property with his brother Oliver. The girl Rose was found to be the younger sister of Oliver's mother, Agnes. Edwin Leaford would have married Agnes if he did not died. Rose was brought up by Mrs. Mellin. Thus Oliver became the nephew of Rose. Six became frightened to be caught. He murdered Nancy, but when he tried to escape, he died in an accident. Fagin was also traced by the police. The court sentenced him to death. Mr. Brownlow had adopted Oliver as his son. Monks soon spent all his share of property and again indulged in criminal activities, but ultimately he died of epileptic. At last, the novel leads to a happy end. Thank you.